nice hot July summer day. It's time now for our weekly program. One of the longest running programs on the Wake Up platform. We say good morning, award-winning Darswell Rogers. It's time now to grow your business today.
And thank you very much, Wes. And good morning to all those across the greater Sand Hills region. You've reached the Grow Your Business Today program, and I'm your host, Darswell Rogers. And I'm broadcasting you this morning from New York City. I'm sitting inside the restaurant that my son owns, and I pitch in and help him out with. But we're not covering that today. We are still continuing talking about business and entrepreneurship. And I'm very pleased to have on the radio with me and on live on Facebook, Facebook Live, my good friend, actually best friend, Greg Dulan, the owner of Dulan Soul Food Kitchen, as well as Hotville Chicken, both of which are in Los Angeles. Greg, I want to first off welcome.
Thank you.
And I want to tee this up because over the last number of weeks, as COVID has come, as we've had a lot of social unrest, I have even more than I typically have been really pushing and advocating the idea that we should have entrepreneurship in our communities. And so I've looked to bring on entrepreneurs from around the country and to kind of help folks to understand the opportunity as well as the challenges, the good and the bad that comes with choosing to be your own boss. Let me kick this off by sharing with folks that Greg and I grew up on the same street in Los Angeles. Greg's dad, Adolph Dulan, so he's a second generation entrepreneur in the food business, was called the King of Soul Food in LA. Greg has been in business as well over 30 years, or I guess about 30 years at this point. And so with that as a backdrop, Greg, I'd love to start with a little bit, if you will, at the beginning. You've got two successful restaurants and a catering operation. But talk about what was the inspiration or decision for you to decide that you wanted to be an entrepreneur?
Well, as you know, I grew up in a business family. My parents owned businesses as I was growing up. They owned a nursery school. They owned a packing business. They owned a couple of restaurants. They started off in the restaurant business in the hamburger stand. My dad owned a Mexican restaurant, and he was looking to do just anything entrepreneurial he could. And along the way, he always talked to us, my brothers and I, about the fact that we should look to own our own business one day. And so he sort of ingrained that in us. And that really took to me. That's something that I really picked up.
And what I know from those days flipping hamburgers, because I used to flip them right next to you, that there was more than a couple of days that you wish you were someplace other than in that hamburger place flipping burgers because you were working instead of having an opportunity to go out and have a good time. So notwithstanding the fact that you had this desire, there's certainly some times along the way where you thought a different career might have been a better opportunity for you. I just share with folks a little bit about the trials and tribulations of a youth where your parents are saying, I want you to do, you got to do this versus perhaps what you want to do.
Yesterday, well, not yesterday, but a couple of days ago, it was the anniversary of our father's birth. And I was teasing with my brothers and sisters that, we're proud of the fact that my dad was in the restaurant business for almost 50 years. But I often wish, that he had gone into real estate or something else because the restaurant business is so hard. I mean, owning a business is hard, and lasting in business for 2 generations is rare, especially for African-American families. So it really takes dedication and a love for what you do, which I have. I have dedication and I absolutely love what I do. Sure, it's hard some days, and some days I wish I was on a beach in the Caribbean often. But I put one foot in front of the other, and I come in every day and I try to make it happen.
Given the fact that we've known each other so long, I can attest to the ups and downs. I can attest to the periods of exhilaration and the periods where you kind of just don't know if you can make it. What I kind of am interested in doing here is that letting you kind of take us through that story a little bit. I think that'll be very helpful for a lot of people. I mean, because go from the decision that you wanted to go back into business, because you came out of Howard University, went to work in New York for Chase Manhattan Bank, and could have had a career as a banker if you had chosen, but you made that pivot. So kind of take my audience back to that initial decision, and then kind of walk through the progressions that you've experienced.
Okay, so we're going back about 30 years, and I can tell you that life for me has been a series of pivots. In fact, with the COVID-19, I had to make one of the biggest pivots I've ever had to make. But when I left Howard University, I went to New York and I worked in corporate America for 6 or 7 years, and I didn't like it. And throughout those years, I always remember what my dad told me and what he used to encourage me to do, to go into, to start a business one day. And so I decided to leave New York City and to come home to Los Angeles and to join my father in the family business. And immediately I regretted it.
You regretted it, why?
Because I was working for my dad, and he's the hardest person to work for. I mean, he doesn't take any prisoners. He doesn't accept any excuses. It has to be right. It has to be perfect. It has to be on time. And if it wasn't, he'd let you know about it. And so he was a very hard taskmaster. But that training, I believe, is what has allowed me to be successful today, because he drilled it into me. He was just so tough. He was just so tough. And he didn't care about my feelings. And he didn't care about, anything. You had to do things a certain way. And so ultimately, my dad ended up firing me. But when he fired me, he said, "Look, I'm going to do this." He said, "I'm going to fire you from working at the restaurant," which was Aunt Kizzy's Back Porch at the time, a restaurant we owned in Los Angeles called Aunt Kizzy's Back Porch, a soul food restaurant. He said, "But I'm going to do something. I'm going to help you launch your own business." He said, "We're getting these requests to do these catering events all the time, and I hate catering." He said, "I'm going to turn that business over to you and see what you can do with it." And so I left the restaurant, Aunt Kizzy's Back Porch, and I started Aunt Kizzy's catering service. And my first job, and this will tell you how long ago this was. My first catering job was for the Los Angeles Raiders. The last time they won the Super Bowl.
Well, first off, you could say that's a long time ago, because the LA Raiders, they're now going to be called the Las Vegas Raiders. But for your first catering job to be for the Raiders also says something about the quality of food that Aunt Kizzy's was putting out.
Right, and it was the Los Angeles Raiders.
Yeah.
And so that was my first event. And so I went on from there and kept the business growing and everything like that. And then one day I got an opportunity to open my own restaurant. I had a businesswoman who took an interest in me and my business and sort of took me under her wing as a mentor. And she was in her 70s and was about to retire. And she offered me the opportunity to take over her restaurant facility. And I was elated. And I said, "Yes, I'd be happy to rent your restaurant." And she said, "No, I don't want you to rent. I want you to purchase it." And so she sold me her restaurant, property and all. And that has been a key to allowing me to maneuver, to survive hard times. I can't tell you how important it is or how important it has been for me to own my property and to own my facility and to own my restaurant. I have been able to survive a lot of the ups and downs that we've seen over the years.
Certainly not having to pay a landlord is can be a huge benefit. Not having to deal with price escalations in a lease can all that can play a big role. You're sitting inside that facility right now, and describe it a little bit, and maybe at some point toward the end we'll take a little tour of it. But describe your operation.
Before I do that, I will correct you and say I have a very greedy landlord. He's very greedy.
And so who we, the greedy person is you, I take it.
And he wants his rent every month. But I am sitting in Dulans on Crenshaw. We're on Crenshaw Boulevard in Los Angeles. And if you've never been in Los Angeles, Crenshaw Boulevard is the main street that drives through, that passes through the African American community in Los Angeles. Los Angeles is going through a lot of changes, like other cities around the country have gone through, but Crenshaw remains that hub where we identify the African American community in Los Angeles. And so we're situated right in the middle of this community, bordered by View Park, Lemert Park, Hyde Park. And so we're very centrally situated. We've been here for 33 years. And right now we operate a cafeteria style soul food restaurant, much like you see in the South. I think in the South they call them a meat and two or a meat and three or something like that. Well, we serve our soul food here in Los Angeles in the same manner with a cafeteria style. We have 3 locations, and we are the #1 soul food restaurant in Los Angeles. We also have a banquet space that seats 100 people. And then if I were to show you outside, we have 4 large vehicles because we are a caterer. We're one of the largest caterers specializing in Southern home cooking in Los Angeles.
As a matter of fact, you've done some of the more remarkable catering events that I've ever heard of. Talk about speaking of football, the new stadium where the Rams, I guess, and the Chargers are going to play. They're both going to play in that stadium, correct?
Yeah. SoFi Stadium, the new stadium being built in Los Angeles. Actually, it's in Inglewood. It's actually in Inglewood, which is the city adjacent to Los Angeles, is being built. It is going to be the most modern, the most technologically advanced stadium in the world. It has a 5,000 seat amphitheater attached to the stadium. The NFL headquarters has been moved to the stadium. The NFL built a tower right outside the stadium, so the NFL headquarters will be based in Los Angeles.
But going back to the catering, you've had the opportunity to feed the workers that have been doing the construction on the stadium lunch, and they put some pretty challenging requirements around you for this. And by the way, for the artists that's just tuning in, I'm talking to Greg Dulan. He's the owner of Dulan's Soul Food Kitchen, Dulan's on Crenshaw, as well as Hotville Chicken, and we'll get to Hotville in a minute. But share a little bit about these lunches that you serve for the workers out of the stadium. How many folks, and what the parameters were around those events?
Well, I am the caterer for the construction company building the stadium, and when they reach milestones in the construction process, they bring us in to feed the construction workers lunch. Now, because it is very expensive to pull these guys off of the job, I'm only given so much time to feed them. And so typically they give me 60 to 90 minutes to feed 4,000 people. So they have typically 4,000 men working on the stadium at any given time, and which is why the stadium is being built so quickly. And when we go over, we set up, and the last event we did, we fed about 4,000 people in an hour and 5 minutes. And so because I'm able to do that, the stadium uses me whenever they have these events. Unfortunately, because of COVID, I lost a job to cater for the raising of the Oculus. The Oculus is the scoreboard. It's a circular scoreboard. Nothing like it exists. And we were supposed to cater for 5,000 people for that event, and we lost that job because of the virus that's hitting us. So, those are some of the types of things that we do, and we do all types of catering events. And earlier I talked about having to pivot.
Right, because actually I want to go back. I should have let you finish the initial story. You had your first catering job was with the Raiders, and you were in the catering business, and then you had the opportunity to open up the restaurant. So you opened up the restaurant, so whereby you were doing restaurant and catering, and then you had another period where you decided to make a pivot, and just share with the audience about that.
So we were doing restaurant and catering, and the restaurant business started to falter. And it started to, we started losing money in the restaurant business. And I, like my father before me, I was facing bankruptcy. And I decided to take a different route. And so I left the restaurant business and pivoted and went into the school lunch business.
And this really is tied to the introduction of charter schools.
At that time, charter schools were just starting in Los Angeles, and they were the charter school entities were opening these schools without figuring out how they were going to feed the kids. And so, and often the facilities where they would open these schools had no facilities for preparing meals for the kids. And so they would take an old warehouse or an old church or something like that, open the school, but hey, how are we going to feed these kids? And so I started a company called School Meal Solutions, and we started going after the charter school business. And we started off with one charter school serving 200 meals a day, and eventually ended up with 31 charter schools serving about 10,000 meals a day. And so I shut my restaurant down completely, converted it to a production facility. I closed and blocked off all the windows, I blocked off all the doors, and I made my main dining room a production space. I bought a food packing machine. I bought all types of warming and holding and chilling equipment so that I could make sure the food is safe. I bought 3 13-foot trucks and 3 vans, so I had 6 vehicles. And I was able to deliver 10,000 meals to 31 schools before 10:30 every morning.
That is a production marvel in the minds of many people. And as is the idea of being able to feed 4,000 people in a little bit more than an hour. As time progressed in the school lunch business, that business became very competitive. I should say, it became very price competitive. And so another period of pivot presented itself. And so I just want to kind of fast forward. So I want to get folks through this story we're talking to Greg Dulan, the owner of Dulans on Crenshaw in Los Angeles, and Hotville Chicken, which is actually one of the hotter, more popular restaurant concepts in America. But go ahead and talk about the pivot. What happened when the school lunch business became very competitive?
Well, I went through 11 years in the school lunch business, and I felt like I had found the golden goose, and I could do this business forever and retire, because my day would start at like 6 in the morning. I'd be finished at 3. I had the holidays off, the summers off, beautiful business. I loved it.
Yeah.
However, these large corporate competitors began to enter the Los Angeles market, and they began to go after my schools, and they severely undercut my pricing, the pricing that I was charging the schools for the meals. And so for a period of 1 or 2 years, I competed with them. And these companies were much, much larger. They were out of San Francisco and other big, other areas. And I competed with them for a couple of years, but they drove me out of the business. They bought the business. And again, I was facing bankruptcy after a long period of doing really well. And so I had to figure out what I was going to do next. And ultimately, I decided to reopen the restaurant. And I reopened as Dulans on Crenshaw. And we started the restaurant operation again. And to my surprise, the restaurant had been closed for 11 years. When I reopened, the customers that I had 11 years ago started coming back. They were a little older. Some of the kids were now grown. Some of the people who were kids now had children. And so it was a very strange situation, but my customers started coming back. And I have to remind myself that there are probably very few restaurants that can close for 11 years and then reopen under the same ownership and, begin to thrive again.
Yeah, I would say that that's an understatement to say that there are very few. There's, you may be certainly the only one I've ever heard of. And so you have fundamentally stuck with a restaurant and a catering operation ever since. Talk about kind of what's happened over the last year or so as it relates to Dulans on Crenshaw, as it relates to your catering business, as it relates to your thoughts about the future with Dulans, and then go ahead and pivot into the Hotville story. We're talking to Greg Dulan. He's the owner of Dulans on Crenshaw and Hotville Chicken.
Well, when I reopened the restaurant, I realized that unlike before when I ran the restaurant, this time around, I had to take a national approach as it related to customer acquisition. And so I started doing things that would market my business across the country. What this did was it brought me customers from different parts of the country who were visiting Los Angeles on vacation. One of the things I did was I hooked up with Harvey Levin, who runs TMZ, and he was shooting a new television show called South of Wilshire. And he approached me and he said, Greg, I'm shooting this new show, but the concept is I have to shoot it in a soul food restaurant. And so to make a long story short, we shot 57 episodes of a nationally televised game show called South of Wilshire in my restaurant. And it was seen all over the country. And that's an example of things that you have to do that may be a little bit out of the box to build a national audience. A national audience or national customer base helps the restaurant to thrive because you're attracting your local customers, but you're also attracting customers that are visiting from out of town.
As a matter of fact, you regularly used to have, and I actually was in the restaurant one day when a group was in from North Carolina.
We have a group from North Carolina that comes every year. It's a tour group, and they come every single year. And they're great folks, Christian folks, and the bus pulls up, and 60 or 70 of them get off the bus. And they're surprised to see good soul food in Los Angeles. And we laugh and we joke and we play the Temptations and we have a good time and we pray, and it's just a really wonderful experience.
Awesome.
But in the last year, I'll take it down less than that. A lot has changed. The restaurant industry has changed dramatically. I'm going to speak about COVID now. Is that okay?
Yeah, let's do it.
COVID-19, the virus, is hitting the restaurant industry especially hard. A lot of my colleagues and peers have closed, some of them permanently. Again, my restaurants were facing a tremendous challenge, and we had to make another pivot. And so we transitioned from running the restaurant on a daily basis, which we do. We have not closed. We're doing takeout and delivery, but we also started doing senior meals, and we started feeding first line defenders at hospitals. And so we are one of a handful of restaurants that has been selected by the city of Los Angeles to participate in the city's citywide senior meal program. And so we prepare a couple of thousand meals a week, and we partner with the city of Los Angeles and the Yellow Cab Company, and we prepare these meals at Dulans. And then the yellow cabs come, and it's something you should really see. I'll send you pictures. They come on the delivery days, and they line up outside the restaurant. You see all these cabs outside, and we pack the meals in a certain way in certain containers so that they're safe. And we put the meals in the cabs, and the cabs take the meals and deliver them to seniors in Los Angeles. We've also teamed up with an organization called World Central Kitchen. And World Central Kitchen is a worldwide food relief organization. And they go and travel anywhere in the world where there's hunger and where people need to be fed. And so for World Central Kitchen, we're feeding 300 families a day. And that's something that keeps us going. And so these things that we're doing to survive in COVID are helping to offset some of the things or some of the revenue that's not coming in through the restaurant.
We're talking to Mr. Greg Dulan. He's the owner of Dulans on Crenshaw in Los Angeles, as well as Hotville Chicken, which he also owns with Miss Kim Prince. I don't want to leave Kim out. Holler out to you, Kim. Let me at this point. Well, look, before I make this pivot, anything else you want to share about COVID and kind of the Dulan experience before I kind of want to pivot and talk about Hotville?
The community has been tremendous in supporting us. And I believe that because of Black Lives Matter and what's been happening with the recent demonstrations and the unfortunate death that occurred a couple of weeks ago, a lot of America is focused and looking at the Black community and Black business in particular. As an example, we just had Jordan Peele, the producer, order several hundred meals from us last week that he donated to a health organization. So these are the types of things that are happening now in the community for businesses. A lot of nonprofits are calling restaurants and things like that, and they're ordering hundreds of meals, and then they're donating to this hospital or that hospital. And so we've been a recipient of that type of give back. So those are some of the things that are those are some of the positive changes that have occurred that we really appreciate.
And so, in the midst, so share a little bit about the Hotville story. I want folks to hear about this completely different concept that you're involved in, and the challenges of getting such a successful launch followed by COVID having a big impact there.
So Hotville Chicken is the hottest restaurant in Los Angeles, but Hotville and the Hotville story is really a Nashville story. It's a story that started in Nashville about 90 years ago when the Prince family created Nashville Hot Chicken. And there's a story about Thornton Prince, the creator of Nashville Hot Chicken and the creator of Prince's Hot Chicken in Nashville, who got everything started. And all of the hot chicken restaurants that you see popping up around the country and around the world started from this family, this African-American family. And so I got introduced to hot chicken by accident. And ultimately, I met Kim Prince, who was in Los Angeles and kind of struggling to get her restaurant off the ground. She had Hotville Chicken, a concept that she had started, and she was doing pop-ups around the city at the time. And I met her, I tasted the chicken. The chicken is amazing, and her passion and her just her passion and her strong will at wanting to open her own restaurant really impressed me. And so I did something that you don't often see done, unfortunately, in the Black community. Not as much as you'd like it. I invested in her business, and I helped Hotville obtain a brick and mortar. And so we have a 3,500 square foot restaurant in South Los Angeles. And we have been, the attention has been amazing. As you know, we've been written up in the New York Times. They did a 3-quarter spread. The Guardian. The
Guardian, which is a UK newspaper.
The Guardian newspaper is a United London, based in London.
Right.
Kim Prince, my partner, was on CNN nationally 3 weeks ago. This past Sunday, Bloomberg was in the restaurant, and Bloomberg has an article. Bloomberg magazine has an article that just came out yesterday. Los Angeles Times, Hotville is going to be featured in Los Angeles magazine as one of the best of Los Angeles. Just tremendous media attention on this restaurant because of this fried chicken and because of the Prince family and because of Kim's personality, quite frankly. And so Hotville Chicken is brand new. We're proud of the fact that we were able to hire 24 new people, all from the community, many of whom this being their first job. We are getting some of the same community support. We had a nonprofit order 150 chicken sandwiches. We call this chicken sandwich the Shaw after Crenshaw Boulevard, but they ordered 150 chicken sandwiches to donate to a local elementary school. It's a beautiful facility.
And that is, and exactly tell folks where that is. Where is Hotville located?
4070 Marlton Avenue in the Crenshaw Mall in the heart of the Crenshaw district. The Crenshaw district does not have a large restaurant presence. And so bringing Hotville to this community was one of the things that I wanted to do to help to, provide a service that is greatly needed.
One of the interesting things about Hotville and its location, it's literally across the parking lot from the dance studio that's owned by Debbie Allen. Many folks know Debbie Allen is a successful, accomplished actress and dancer choreographer. So you are truly in the heart of some successful Black entrepreneurs and business people.
Exactly, and that where we're located, you have Post and Beam Restaurant, which was started by my friend Brad Johnson, and is there now. Debbie Allen, and then you have Hotville, and we're all in the same area. We all support one another, and Hotville is less than half a mile away from Dulans, and so the two restaurants are able to support one another. With personnel, food production, and things like that. And so we're doing the senior meal program here at Dulans, but we're doing the same thing in Hotville. And so we're able to share personnel, food production, transportation. And so having the two restaurants close together, which was another part of our strategy, has helped to make both restaurants successful.
And so when you think about the future? What do you see? What do you envision? Maybe the future as it relates to COVID, as it relates to civil unrest, or just in terms of what your strategic thinking is. We're talking to Greg Dulan, the owner of Dulans on Crenshaw, and co-owner with Kim Prince of Hotville Chicken, also in Los Angeles. What are you foreseeing? What are your expectations?
Well, I should mention that Dulans has 3 locations in Los Angeles. And so my brother, Terry Dulan, manages 2 of the locations, and I manage the location on Crenshaw, and then we have Hotville, which I also help to run. And so as far as Dulans is concerned, we were actually in the process of negotiating a deal to open a restaurant in the new football stadium. But obviously all of that is on hold right now, so we don't know what's going to happen there. We're in the process of building out a food truck as we speak, which should be ready in the next couple of months. And when the food truck is ready, because of the environment, I don't know what's going to happen there, but that should be a good component to add to our mix. We plan to grow the Hotville brand, and we have some investor interest there. And so we're looking to grow that brand, certainly here in Southern California. And the thought is to move to other markets around the country. And, these are just some of the things that we're thinking about.
So I know you get approached regularly by young folks interested in business, interested in food. What is the kind of core basic advice that you give to folks when they approach you saying, I'm thinking about going into business? What's the advice you offer up?
Well, to try to study the craft and to really learn it. It's always good to work for someone else first, to make sure that this is something that you really want to do, and also to learn. It's tough. The restaurant business is tough. There are a lot of barriers to entry in the restaurant business. There's a lot of capital required. If you have a good concept, though, if you're a Kim Prince and you have passion and you have a good concept, there's a good chance that you might find somebody who will believe in you enough to invest in your business. But it takes passion, and it takes a strong desire and a will to be successful, and it takes knowledge. It would be helpful to have a mentor, somebody that you can talk to, give you the teach you the ropes, so to speak, and follow your dreams. Go for it.
Well, one of the great things that folks that frequently don't appreciate is they see the business and they don't understand all of the back of the house, or I'll say late night bookkeeping, or the other ingredients other than what people see when they walk into a business. So we'll take the restaurant business for a second. Compared as a percentage, and we're talking to Greg Dulan, the owner of Dulans on Crenshaw and owner of Hotville Chicken. As a percentage, how much of what actually is necessary to run your business can a customer see versus that's hidden behind the scenes of that operation? And I think people see an idea and they love it because, hey, like I can cook, so therefore I should be able to be in the restaurant business, just by way of example. So give them some sort of balance or ratio there.
I think the customer sees about 20 to 25%. Most of it, particularly the restaurant business, is behind the scenes, whether it's the shopping or the food prep or doing the payroll or paying the bills or dealing with vendors, dealing with customers, dealing with problems. The restaurant business in particular, you're putting out fires all the time. People don't realize how hard we work. and that we work very hard to put a good product out every day. We do our best, and we always have our customers' best interests at heart. It's a lot of behind the scenes things that go on that the customers never see. Our frustrations, our challenges, you know, uh, employee challenges and things like that, business challenges, and having to pivot from one uh, scenario to another. Um, you know, thinking about growth and strategy and how we're going to grow the business, or simply how we're going to survive a certain challenge that we're faced. There's a lot a lot of long days and sleepless nights and things like that that we go through that the customer never sees. But I still love it.
So I know you got up and started moving around. My radio audience won't be able to see this, but let's talk and walk. And where can you take us here? I certainly think that folks might be curious to see, just the layout. What do we?
Well, Dulans, we're a simple business. We're cafeteria style. It's one of my employees clocking in right there.
Yeah, and when you say cafeteria shop, for my local audience, it looks the lineup is similar to my favorite place to get lunch. Kinlaw. It's kind of got a lineup like Kinlaw. So that's what he's describing here. It's that sort of basic setup.
Yep. And we'll go outside. These are all my trucks.
Right. So this is how you're able to feed 4,000 people in a little more than an hour. Is if you can load a lot of equipment and food into trucks and get it wherever you need it to be.
So the key to that aspect is owning your own equipment, owning your own trucks, because when I get these large events, I don't have to go out and rent trucks. I don't have to go out and rent equipment. I own a lot of equipment, a lot of warmers, a lot of things on wheels. We're getting ready to add a 18-foot food truck to our fleet. And we're also going to be purchasing a refrigeration truck to support the food truck. And so we're going to have a pretty powerful mobile capability in the next couple of months. And we'll be able to go anywhere in the state of California and serve, hundreds of people. And so that's one of our marketing strategies for Dulans and Hotville. We're going to nickname our truck Dulanville, which will be LA's first dual brand food truck. And the truck kitchen is designed so that it will accommodate the Dulan's soul food menu and also the Hotville hot chicken menu. And so if a customer or corporate client wants soul food, we'll go out and do the Dulan's menu. If they want hot chicken, we'll go out and do the Hotville chicken menu. The two will never cross over. And we believe by doing this, the truck will stay busy, and we should get a lot of business and be able to market both businesses at the same time. Anytime the truck goes out, we'll be marketing both businesses. And that's what that's for. So that's another marketing strategy.
So you're 33 years in the restaurant business personally.
Mm-hmm.
And if you count the time you worked with your dad, how many years total?
Well, I'm about 34 years in, I think. But, if you count my dad, the family's been in business, over, 45 years. And so we're still growing. We don't have 100 restaurants. We don't. But of the restaurants that we do own, we own the property on all the restaurants. So that's what gives us longevity. And that's what allows us to survive the economic ups and downs. And that's what allows us to grow, because we have the collateral to be able to go out and borrow money and things like that. The lenders and the banks see stability. They see financial stability because you own your property. And so that gives us I guess an advantage because we're perceived as a less risky investment from a banking point of view.
So I have a question. One of the things that you said that I really think I want to emphasize or actually ask you to talk more about is this decision on marketing. I know at one point you actually, and I'm assuming that you did finally put that billboard up, correct, on the 405 freeway or someplace you put it up, right?
Yeah, I put a billboard up on the 405 freeway, an electric billboard, and it was seen by 500,000 people a day.
And so you got electric billboard. I remember when you first started doing Facebook ads or you used to boost things on Facebook, you were spending dollars on that on a regular basis.
Yeah.
This idea of marketing, that is, I think, another one of the key errors or mistakes that people make is they just don't seem to understand that just because you have a great product doesn't translate into success. That you've got to do all the component parts to it. So to talk about the marketing that you do, you've mentioned the billboards, you mentioned this. Again, how did you get this international reach, this national reach, whereby when people come to Los Angeles, it's not just the local neighborhood that knows about you, but it's beyond that. Well, kind of tick off several of the things that you think somebody starting out needs to know, needs to be doing.
Well, building a national reputation takes years to do. And you do that by performing consistently, putting out a good product, and you have to cater to not only your customers who are local, but you want to spend a little extra time talking with and getting to know and welcoming your customers from out of town. One of the things that I do that a lot of restaurant owners probably don't is that when I find that there are customers visiting Dulans from out of town, I'll actually take them next door to my office, which is next to the restaurant, bring them in, give them a tour, talk about the business, take pictures. You have to take a lot of pictures. And then when they leave, hopefully they have formed a good impression about you. They've enjoyed the food, and they go back to their hometown and they tell people, hey, the next time you're in Los Angeles, you got to stop at Dulan's on Crenshaw. Over the decades, that builds, and you build a national following. In addition to that, you try to take opportunities to market your business in ways that will have a national reach. As an example, I mentioned the South of Wilshire game show where we filmed 57 episodes right inside my restaurant. And so we actually had a film crew, we had a studio audience, and I believe I may be the only restaurant in America who's done anything like that. We filmed 57 episodes, and this was seen all over the world. Likewise, it doesn't hurt to have the former Vice President Joe Biden come to the restaurant as he did a year ago. In fact, a year ago this week, the Vice President came to Dulans, and that was seen all over the world. And, just different things like that we try to do to, you have to think that way. First of all, you have to be thinking national, local, national, and you have to be thinking about tourists and tourism and the fact that we're in a tourist city. And when people come to Los Angeles, they want to go to Disneyland, they want to go to Universal Studios, but guess what? They want to try some local soul food too. And so you have to recognize that, and you market yourself accordingly.
The thing that strikes me is, if from just purely from a tourist point of view, I live in a community where folks get off Interstate 95 in Fayetteville. They want to go to the Air Force. They want to go to the Airborne Museum. They want to see the Market House. There's a lot of history in that community, and for any business to figure out how to tap into tourist dollars, I know you're spending time talking about LA, and I know somebody's listening and saying, yeah, but that's easy because he's in LA. But the reality is that the principles and the ideas that you have used here are applicable anywhere. You can have a reputation that goes out beyond your local neighborhood or your local community. You just have to put some effort around it.
And likewise, you have to have a local strategy. And I don't believe in buying ads. And that's just me. I know I'm on the radio, but I have always practiced what I call a growth through giving strategy, where I am very visible in my community and I give back a lot.
For instance, when you say you give back a lot, what do you mean?
Well, as an example, the local Boy Scout troop with West Angeles Church of God in Christ, which is one of the large mega churches here. I've donated a pancake breakfast for them for 21 years in a row. Debbie Allen Dance Academy, she does an annual gala to raise $1 million for her dance academy. And for the last 14 years in a row, I've been there donating fried chicken. And there are many, 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 many other examples of things like that I do, where I'm donating food, or I'm doing food at a discount, or I'm judging a contest. I'm very visible in the community. And typically, if someone calls on me to do something for a hospital or a church or something like that, I try my best to do it. And when the customers and the community sees you supporting the community, then they turn around and support your business. And so I call it a growth through giving strategy. It's a win-win strategy. The community, the community has needs.
Yes.
Often the community has needs, especially the Black community. We have needs, and and so that's one of the things that we do. And then another thing that we do is we try to hire locally. We don't try, we do. And between the 4 restaurants that we have over 100 employees, all hired locally. We talked about the fact that SoFi Stadium, football stadium, hires me as their caterer to feed 4,000 people. Well, the first time they hired me for that event, I hired the entire Crenshaw High School football team, all high school students. They had never catered an event before, and we went over to that stadium, and those kids, those young men, and we hired the cheerleaders also.
So Greg, I know it's hard to believe that we have been on till the top of the hour. It's been a really enjoyable visit with you.
Yes.
I wish you the best of success going forward.
Okay.
And we'll get you back on the radio, and we got to get over to Hotville and give Kim an opportunity to share what her story is about Hotville Chicken as well.
Sounds good.
Well, thanks so much for joining me this morning. To my audience, have an outstanding 4th of July weekend. We'll see you next weekend, next Friday. You listen to WIDU Wake Up.
Thank you, Darcy. Bye-bye.